Hey, what's going on, guys? I want to welcome you to Rex Reviews Godzilla. This is my YouTube channel where I'm just reviewing all of the Godzilla movies because I thought it would just be a fun thing to do. And it's my favorite franchise. I'm a big fan, but I have been critiquing these movies kind of harshly, maybe. But it's from a place of love, man. I love these movies. I just love talking about them, which is, considering most of these reviews are between an hour and a half. I guess you could probably tell how much I love talking about it. Anyway, today we're talking about Godzilla versus Megalon. And apparently this is one of the worst Godzilla films to some people. As a child, I do remember watching this movie. Like a lot of the Showa era films, I watched them a lot when I was like 5, 6 years old, 4 years old. And I don't remember the details of the films very well, but I remember how they made me feel. So, for instance, I remember really liking Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla, which we haven't gotten to yet. But with Godzilla versus Megalon, I don't remember the details, but I remember that it kind of made me feel it was all right. It was kind of middle of the road, maybe like in towards the bottom, like maybe in the bottom, like 30% of my favorite Godzilla movies, like. If I were to guess, I think as a kid, Godzilla vs. Megalon was like a 5 or a 6 out of 10 to me. Still loved it, still watched it on repeat because it was Godzilla, but it wasn't one of my favorite Godzilla movies. I didn't remember a whole lot about it. I had forgot that it featured Jet Jaguar, which is such a bummer, and I'll get to that. But I do think it would be funny to tell you this story. When I was going to review Godzilla vs. Hedorah, I accidentally booted up Godzilla vs. Megalon. They're kind of similar, in the names and the titles. I just got them mixed up. I was tired one night or whatever. And I watched like the first 20 minutes of Godzilla vs. Megalon. And when I was doing my review of Godzilla vs. Gigan, which was the last film that I did, which, man, I wish that would have been better. It wasn't terrible, but I'm just such a fan of Gigan, and I wish he would have had a better introduction to Godzilla, and we're going to get to Gigan in a little bit soon as well, because I did not know Gigan was in this film, but he is. So that was a very pleasant surprise. They got me twice in a row with this. Like in Godzilla vs. Gigan, I didn't know that Ghidorah was in it. And I was like, oh shit, Ghidorah's in this? And now I'm watching this movie and Gigan shows up. I'm like, fucking Gigan, so that was pretty cool. But when I was watching Godzilla vs. Hedorah, I accidentally pulled up this movie, watched the first 20 minutes of it before I realized, wait a minute, I think I'm watching the wrong movie. And then I, switched over and watched Godzilla vs. Hedorah and reviewed that movie, which I'm still bitter about what they did with that movie. But at the end of my Godzilla vs. Gigan review, I realized we were about to talk about this, and I was kind of excited, and I was like, oh man, like I've already seen like the first 20 minutes and there's like some things I want to say, but I'm going to keep it to myself until the review. And you could tell probably that I was pretty positive about it. And that's so funny. That's so funny to me because I had only seen the first 20 minutes of this movie, and I was all the way in. And that's when, of course, I realized I was watching the wrong movie. And so I was excited coming back to it, not knowing that the opening 20 minutes of this movie, probably the best part of the movie, it's probably like the opening 20 minutes and then the last 15 minutes or so. And that just depends on how you feel about the final monster fight. That's it. Everything else in between is just kind of, okay. Anyway, before I go into like my thoughts on the movie, let's take a look at how this movie was received by critics and fans. So over here on IMDb, you can see, well, you cannot see, but it's got a 4.9 out of 10 with 8,000 votes. Over on Rotten Tomatoes, this is sitting at a 38% from critics and 35% from, audience. And, yeah, it's kind of hard to argue, like the critics and the fans both agree, like critics and viewers are right there together. And I think I am too, man. I think this was, another, disappointment. To be honest with you, this was another disappointment. Wait a minute, is Godzilla and Megalon, are they standing on the Twin Towers right here? Am I tripping? Like, is this official? I live in New York. Are those the Twin Towers? Like, I just moved here in January, so I'm not from New York. Otherwise, I'd probably know. That's kind of crazy. Anyway. So, yeah. Not a very well received Godzilla movie. And I'm going to talk about why that is. The first thing that I want to go over, though, is just some details about the film. Director. So this was directed by Jun Fukuda again. So he's back. This was his fifth Godzilla film. He had done Ibira, Horror of the Deep, Son of Godzilla, Godzilla vs. Gigan, and Godzilla vs. Megalon. Fukuda, so there's things that I like about him, his direction, and things I don't. I think that he does some interesting things with characters, with like the human story. He tends to get like really experimental with the human story. And I think that his human characters and some of the things that he does with them are maybe more interesting than Honda's. In terms of it's not always super militarized. His soundtracks are usually a little bit more experimental. They have a little bit more jazz and pop and rock, and some other different sounds. They don't have like the military drums and like the serious like military type music that you associate with other Godzilla films. I mean, I know that he's probably done some films that had Akira. I can't remember their names, but Akira did the music in a lot of the Godzilla films. I don't think he does the music here. This one is, the composer is Richiro Manabe. Look, you can see it. I'm sorry, I don't know how to say it. But yeah, unlike Akira Ifukube's, military orchestral scores. This one is upbeat pop orchestration, funky 70s action music, brass heavy superhero themes. So he gets like experimental with that stuff. And I think that he does some good things with the music and the human characters. I will give him that, but I do not really care for the monster scenes in his films generally. I think the last time I was really invested in the monster scenes or the monster fighting, man, it might have been Invasion of Astro Monster and Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. And I know that like those aren't necessarily rated extremely high among some fans, but I actually liked both of those movies, and I think I liked of the monster like battle royale type films that we've been having lately, these tag team and mashup films. I think Invasion of Astro Monster was probably my favorite so far. Jun Fukuda's. I'm just gonna say June. The fight scenes in his movies, I don't like them generally. I think they're, I don't know if it's his direction, but Godzilla seems a little bit more humanized in some of these movies. I'm just not a big fan of his monster scenes. Luckily, in this movie, there's almost no real monster scenes worth talking about until almost the end of the movie. I will say the budget's 30 million yen. Again, extremely low. This is one of the cheapest Godzilla movies ever made. So again, I have to give it some leeway because they were given almost no budget for this. As far as fan reception, it did poor box office in Japan. It was the lowest attended Godzilla film up to that point. It was viewed by many Japanese fans as a sign the series had become too childish, apparently. Today, it's more divisive. Community discussions today often describe it as so bad it's good. And then here's our monster. So here's Jet Jaguar, Godzilla, Gigan, and this is Megalon here. I'm not a big fan of them advertising a film as Godzilla versus this one monster, and it's a monster being introduced to the franchise, and then they get put in a tag team. I'm not really a big fan of that. And again, I think that this is a situation. I said this in Gigan's film. The reason why Ghidorah was brought in was so they could use stock footage. I feel like Gigan was brought in so that they could use stock footage, because it makes no sense why he's there, to be honest with you. But now I'll just kind of get into my review of it. So let me see here. I have notes that I've taken on everything, and I want to just pull those up. Sorry, I lost them like an idiot. Give me 1 second. I can pull them up. I would love to edit this, but I just can't. What the fuck? Hold on. Okay, I found it. Jesus, sorry. Video is already ruined. It doesn't matter. So the general plot of this one, your main characters are Goro Ibuki, who is the big brother. He is an electrical engineer. He's the creator of Jet Jaguar. He's got a little brother, Rakuro, who's maybe 10 years old or something. And Goro has a friend that's a race car driver named Hiroshi. So the opening of this movie, again, is very serious. We get this kind of with a lot of Godzilla movies lately, and it's super frustrating. They have this opening that's really serious. They talk about nuclear testing and nuclear bombs affecting Monster Island and things like that. And it shows all the monsters on Monster Island. It almost looks like they're using the gas scene from what was it, Son of Godzilla or something like that, where the monsters were gassed on Monster Island. I can't really remember, but anyway, you show they show Godzilla, Monster Island being gassed. All the monsters are upset. They go right into the musical opening of the movie. You see the new Godzilla suit. This is one of my favorite Godzilla suits, the Godzilla suit from Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla. That's where I recognize it the most. It's one of my favorite Godzilla suits. I think it's a really cool suit. And I think the opening built really good tension. It opens with the brothers kind of enjoying a picnic, and the big brother and his race car driving friend, they're the adults. They're on the hillside enjoying a picnic, and the kid is out on a lake, on some kind of toy device, not swimming, but riding on this toy motorboat thing. I don't know what it's actually called. And then all of a sudden, there's a fissure that's created in the bottom of the lake. The lake starts, being sucked down. The kid's being pulled in. They have to rescue the kid. They use a rope launcher to shoot a rope to him. It's super dramatic. It's very tense. It feels, it's kind of dark, because it's a little child that's in trouble. And, yeah, it's just again, you kind of set up a serious tone. And I'm all in on it. And then, after that happens, it shows them driving back to the robotic engineer, the electrical engineer, robotic engineer, whatever you want to call him. That is Goro. So Goro, I guess. Sorry, I don't know how to say most of the names. Goro's, they go back to his robotics lab or whatever, and they're talking about the nuclear testing. They actually drop a little bit of lore there that there used to be two continents that supposedly existed. It's kind of like Atlantis, but they, due to probably nuclear fallout or something like this. Well, no, it was 3 million years ago. So for whatever reason, two continents, there was a tectonic event, and two continents were sucked under the sea. And one of them ends up being Seatopia, which is just, I'm not a big fan of the name. I think it's a little bit corny, but it's not a big deal. and that's your antagonist really for the movie, is the people of Seatopia using Megalon to attack the people on the surface level, on the surface world. But they have a conversation and they drop a little bit of lore about that. They go back to his robotics lab where they walk in on like a break-in in progress. These two guys from Seatopia, they're like agents of Seatopia. They're breaking in and going through all of the robotic stuff. And they walk in on them. The guys like run out. I think they get into a little bit of a scrap. I will say that, there's a lot of fight scenes in this movie. There's a lot of like struggling and fight scenes in this film. It's very, very pro wrestling. Like, it's so fake. It's so like, it's so like, fake's not such a terrible word to use with pro wrestling. You would think I would know better because I was a professional wrestler before I did YouTube, but it's just that the fight scenes, like pro wrestling in terms of like, the way that they like wind up their punches and like the, how performative the fighting looks. And that's where you kind of, again, you feel this like tug of war between some of the more mature like narrative elements that they want to have in these films, but they also have to keep it kid friendly. So like, like the kid is constantly running into the fight. And so what's his name? Rokuro, the little brother. The kid is constantly running in and he always grabs somebody's leg and then they like act like they need him and knocked him off, but they don't do anything. It's just, it's whatever, but it's hard to watch because it's just choreographed terribly, honestly. So anyway, they get out of there. Let's see. After they leave, the friend that's a race car driver chases them. There's 2 car chases in this game. Sorry, I'm so like mentally fried. I apologize. There's 2 car chases in this film, and they're both really good, and I really like them. And this is around the 20-minute mark. This is around the point where I had stopped watching previously. Outside of the like very like pro wrestling type of like badly choreographed fighting, I really liked everything up to this point because there was a lot of action. The pace was moving fast. You feel like this is going to be a fast-paced movie, and it kind of is. It's just that nothing good happens. So it's fast-paced. We're kind of getting through it at like a brisk pace, but it's just not a lot is happening that I think the viewer cares about in this movie, which is a shame. Because this is a Godzilla movie, and like all of this is based on Seatopia has sent these agents. They're trying to get control of Jet Jaguar. And, me, like, I know Ultraman was popular in Japan, and I know that they, apparently from some of my research, they were trying to kind of get in on, like, a lot of, like, the comic book, like, cartoons and comic book anime and comic book, like, culture, and, there was a lot of stuff happening with these, like, humanoid robots that were heroes and stuff, and they were just trying to get in on that. So they brought in Jet Jaguar, again, also thinking that it might appeal to a younger audience, I'm guessing. And, me personally, I just never cared about Jet Jaguar at all. And I really felt like Jet Jaguar's presence brought this movie down a little bit for me, even as a kid. I was never into superhero movies. I was never really into, like, superhero cartoons necessarily as a kid. I liked a couple, but when I watch a monster movie, I want to see monsters, and the robot might as well just be like a giant human in this movie when he's fighting, and it just didn't do it for me. And it didn't help that in this movie they humanized the monsters so much. I mean, even Gigan and Megalon have a lot of moments where they're acting very much like people to a degree, gesturing like people. And some of the moments are not bad. Like you have a moment in the final fight where Godzilla is charging at Gigan, who is fighting Jet Jaguar, and Gigan's got the upper hand. He's actually like buried somehow. I don't think they really show this, but he's somehow buried Jet Jaguar in earth, in like the dirt, up to like maybe his chest. So Jet Jaguar's pretty helpless. And Godzilla's running over to help, and Gigan sees him coming, and Gigan gets behind Jet Jaguar. You know, Gigan's got those hooked arms, and he grabs Jet Jaguar's neck and gestures like he's going to behead him. He's going to behead Jet Jaguar, and that makes Godzilla stop. And it's like, you know, on one hand, again, like I don't like it when it's too anthropomorphic or it's too humanized. I really don't like that. But you know, that was a scene that I remembered from my childhood that stood out to me. I think that was kind of done well, you know, even though I'm not really overall into this, like, Godzilla and Jet Jaguar versus Gigan and Megalon. I'm not really digging this tag team fight, you know, but I still thought that was pretty well done. I thought that was pretty cool, honestly. Like, I don't hate everything that they do when it comes to making them more human-like, but they go way overboard in the films lately, and this is another one where I feel like they do it, especially with the handshake. They have, like, so Seatopia is trying to get control of Jet Jaguar because they want first of all, they want robots as, like, servants and protectors. That's one. And two, they need Jet Jaguar to lead Megalon to Tokyo, I guess, to the targets that they want Megalon to destroy. I don't know why. I don't know why, if Megalon is like their god and like they, you know, they summon Megalon with these rituals and they have these women dancing. They're like, they look like semen or something, or like they're wearing giant condoms. Like they have a giant, almost like KKK looking white hat, and then a see-through white gown, and then they're just in a white bra and panties, and they're dancing around, and it's just so goofy. I hope if I can find it. It's so goofy. Let me see if I can find an image of it. Here's one. You can't see it very well, but like, you see this? Like, what the hell is this? They're running around in their fucking underwear, and what the fuck are they wearing? This is Seatopia. So when they introduce Seatopia, so that you can see, like, you know, that these are the people. This is the underground, underwater civilization that feels threatened by the surface dwellers and all of their nuclear experiments, etc., etc. And they're sending Megalon to destroy them because they're, you know, we're disrupting the peace. And it's like, the concept is cool, but like when you see these people in their outfits, like this is their leader right here. This is their leader, and it's just like, what the fuck? Like, it's rough. It's rough. I don't know what to tell you. It's just rough. It's one of those things where as soon as it pops up on the screen, you just bust out laughing. And I know that these movies, you know, this is 1973. These movies are a product of their time, and I totally get that. But nah, bro. Like, now, you know, I said I like June because, is it John or June? I don't know. I'm just dumb American, I guess. I like how he tends to get really creative with the human stories that he tells in Godzilla movies, but it's like, it is hit and miss, bro. It's very hit and miss with some of the things. Like, this Seatopia people, you barely see them, and the only thing that you do see of them is this, and it's just goofy and ridiculous and laughable. And then their motives are laughable, at least with Jet Jaguar. Why do they need Jet Jaguar to lead Megalon, their like god or whatever? Why do they need Jet Jaguar, a robot on the surface? First of all, how do they even know about that robot? Why would they pick that robot? Like, this is just like you know, our main character is a robotics engineer, but he's just a regular dude, like just building this at home, you know what I mean? At his house almost. And, you know, again, like, just convenient plot elements because they want Jet Jaguar in this film, and that's cool. Like, you want Jet Jaguar. I don't know. I don't know why I'm getting so tongue-tied tonight, man. But they want him in the movie, that's fine. But I just feel like, you could have just... A lot of it seems low effort. A lot of the writing in this film is like, this happens, and then this happens, and then this... Have you ever seen that clip? I think it's of the South Park. I think it's like Trey and Matt Stone. It's like the writers of South Park, and they're giving like a lecture to some university students. And they talk about like good writing versus bad writing. If you've never seen the clip, they say that like bad writing is something happens and then something happens and then, and good writing is something like something happens and because of that, this happens. However, this happens that causes, whatever. I can't remember the exact wording, but it's just the difference between lazy bullet point writing and actually telling like a story, something that feels like woven together and connected. And this is definitely some and then storytelling, which we've been getting a lot of. And it's just like one thing happens after another and it doesn't feel connected. It just feels like, you watch some of these Godzilla movies and they just say stuff and you as the viewer have to accept it, like Megalon, not Megalon, Jet Jaguar, going from, like a 5'10" average height, whatever average height is in Japan. He's a humanoid height robot. And then in the movie, after the aliens take control of him and then the humans get control, Goro gets control of him back, and then he goes to get Godzilla. So first he was going to lead Megalon to Tokyo to destroy Tokyo. Now he's going to get Godzilla to bring Godzilla to fight Megalon. When he gets back, he all of a sudden starts like, doing what he wants. Like he's not taking orders from anybody. He goes like fully like sentient. And somehow grows to the size of Godzilla and Megalon to be in this fight. And the only explanation that you get for how he's able to do that, because he's not like a superhero, right? He's just a robot built by some dude in your neighborhood. Some regular dude built this robot. So I would almost rather them not give me any explanation than give me the explanation they gave me, because they basically have Goro say like, his determination to fight Megalon and stand up against Megalon is why he grew so big to fight him. It was his determination that made him grow. All right, man. And I find myself doing that a lot in these movies, in these Godzilla movies. I find myself, like, especially in the last couple movies in a row, they just do stuff like that. They just say things, and you just have to accept it, or, what's your other option? Just be annoyed and not enjoy the movie? So you just kind of have to roll with these ridiculous things. They have a scene where they've, the guys that broke into the robotics lab, they're trying to get control of Jet Jaguar. Obviously, they get busted the first time they leave. They come back, they come back later, and the little kid is out riding a little motorbike, and they kidnap him. And then they take him back to the robotics lab, and basically, they have like a doorbell camera, basically, and so they send the kid up there and they're like, all right, get him to open the door so we can go in, and now they're armed. I don't know why they didn't have guns out the first time, but now they're armed with these special guns that, like, instead of shooting bullets, when they shoot the main characters with these guns, it shoots, I guess, a powder that knocks them out. So they end up doing that and getting back in. And then they decide to tie up the race car driver and keep him in the robotics lab. Oh, and then they do one of my favorite things that they've been doing lately as well, where one of the villains just openly tells the good guy their all their secrets and their plots. So the race car driver is tied up at the robotics lab, and then they take Goro and the little boy and put them in a shipping container and they like one of the other guy, because there's two guys that are breaking in. One of the guys from Seatopia, he basically like pays a couple of truckers to take him with them in the back in the shipping container, take him to that lake where there was a fissure before that drained the lake, and I guess he wants them to drop the shipping container into the fissure so that they can send this guy to Seatopia somehow without killing them. Seems like they would die because they're in the back of this metallic shipping container, tied up, just sliding all around, and it's just big and metallic, you know what I mean? And you're gonna like throw them, like dump them in the middle of a lake and then throw them down a fissure to like however many miles down towards the center of the earth to Seatopia. They never even say why they're doing that, by the way. They never say why they're doing that. They don't even make it 100% clear why any of that's really happening. My only assumption is that they want the robotics engineer because maybe they need him to do maintenance on Jet Jaguar or build them other robots, but they don't say that. And the kid, I don't know why they have the kid with him. I don't know why they kept the race car driver tied up instead of like doing away with him, because the race car driver ends up breaking free, and he's like in this little like IKEA chair that's like held together by like string, so he like busts it up against like the wall behind him. It breaks. He ends up getting into this horrible looking struggle fight, badly choreographed fight with one of the Seatopia guys, chokes him out or whatever, goes running after, and again, before this happens, when he's talking, because I don't think he's gagged or anything, he's talking to the Seatopia guy. He's like, "What do you want with us?" And then the Seatopia guy just gives him all the lore. Well, we're from Seatopia, and we need robots, and we're waging war on the people on the surface, and we've got your friend, and he's in a shipping container, and we're gonna dump him in a fissure at this particular lake, and they're on the way to do that right now. And he just, like the villain just like tells him everything. And it's so funny because after they have their struggle and then the race car driver takes off for this awesome race car sequence, to be fair, to try to go and save Goro and the little boy. After he takes off and the Seatopia guy wakes up and like gets on the radio with Seatopia, which I don't know how that works, but whatever. He tells them, "Oh, you gotta stop him. He's he broke out, he's free, and he knows all of our secrets." Well, brother, you told him. Like, you just volunteered everything to him. He asked one question, and you volunteered your whole plan and your history and your lore, and you gave him some cooking recipes, and it's just crazy. Like, you just told him everything. So anyway, I will tell you something. This is the only Godzilla movie that I've ever seen that has nudity in it. Did you know there's nudity in Godzilla vs. Megalon? There's nudity. This shocked me. So remember I told you that one of the like bad guys from Seatopia, he basically has two truckers in the front of a truck, and he's going to pay them some money to drive this truck and drop off the shipping container in the middle of the lake. While they're talking and like driving in the truck, on like the back window of the truck, there's like nude posters and like nude magazine covers and stuff like taped on the window, like in the background. I never noticed that in my life. I wish I could remember if that was in the TV edit. I've never seen nudity in a Godzilla film ever. Like one thing about Godzilla films is there's like almost zero sexuality in any of them that I've ever seen. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I mean, I had forgot about this, or it was edited out of the versions of Godzilla versus Megalon that maybe I saw on TV or something. But holy shit, I did not know that. And so there's just like there's titties and I think I don't know. I can't remember if it's full nudity or just topless, but it's there, and I was really caught off guard by that. I was like, hold on, like I thought we were doing. Wait a minute, hold on. Like, so you mean to tell me that you have to pull all of these ridiculous punches in my fucking monster movie, in my Godzilla movie. You know, I'm getting less, but you can still have boobies. You got nudity tucked away in the back of a scene, and that's okay. But they can't use real guns, or like, I can't, you know, so whatever. Anyway, I was really caught off guard by that. I've never seen nudity in Godzilla before. So anyway, moving on. The way they get saved is fucking ridiculous. So they're in the back of that shipping container. First, the chase sequence, I will say, the race car driver, what's his name again? Hiroshi. He's racing to get to them, and Seatopia, for whatever reason, has like agents on the surface level, like, because the commander's like, oh, you know, stop him, you know, and then you just see these cars peel out of traffic and pull out of gas stations, and, you know, motorbikes and stuff just start chasing him. Fuck, like, what? Like, they just have people they just have agents like on the surface world, I guess. Those people were already there. I was, you know, caught off guard by that. So anyway, they end up chasing Hiroshi, and Hiroshi's like racing. This scene is crazy and really good. It honestly was really good. It was a really good racing scene, especially for this time period and for this low budget. They really went all out for this racing scene. I mean, it's laughable at times, because like there were times I thought like they were using miniatures for the cars, because the car is going down such steep hills. It's going down like stone stairs, and then going down like beach or like sandy dunes, and like at steep angles that look like you couldn't do that without flipping a car. It looks like there's no way you could do that without flipping your fucking car. And so I thought like, okay, this has got to be like they're using miniatures. But then I looked and like, no, they really had stunt drivers doing this. It's pretty awesome. It's a really good chase sequence. He ends up getting away from them, and then he ends up getting to the truck with the shipping container, because by this point Megalon has been summoned. Megalon is like, you know, wandering around, and Megalon, you know, he's near the truck, and so everybody starts to panic. The truckers, you know, they're able to throw the Seatopia guy out the side of the truck, because he eventually pulls his gun on them, so they kick him out. Right when they're going to just like drop the shipping container into like a dam, but they panic too when Megalon shows up. They start to run. And so Hiroshi gets there, and Hiroshi jumps in the car, and he's trying to like stop the shipping container from sliding into the dam as Megalon's approaching. And instead of just like driving away or like lowering, I guess he like couldn't figure out how to work the controls. He ends up hitting the button to drop the shipping container. As the shipping container drops and is dropping down into the dam, free falling, Megalon hits the container with one of his like drill hands and knocks the container over a mountain, and then it lands on the other side of the mountain. It would have 100% instantly killed Goro and Rokuro. Like, there's no way they survived that. Because, I mean, even while they were driving, and, Goro and Rokuro, fuck it, the brothers are in the back of the shipping container. They're just sliding around, banging up against the metal, and they're getting bruises on their face and shit. They just get knocked over a mountain. The shipping container lands, tumbles over on the mountainside, opens up, and they come rolling out. And they're knocked out. But, like, brother, like, come on. You know, like, there was no other way to do that. Like, I get it. They just thought, like, this will look really cool, you know, like parents can watch it with their kid and go, oh, look at that, and the kid will be like, wow, you know. And that's the only thing that I can think of that they were thinking when they made the scene. And I get it, like, these are more kids movies. I am not, you know, especially now as like a 40-year-old man, I am not like the target audience. So I know that I probably seem like an asshole to many people critiquing the movie this hard, but I have seen too many Godzilla films that are good, and I have seen too many kids films that are still great, that are still well written, you know, that can have occasional scenes of like, wow, like big set piece moments without being so over the top that it's like it becomes like laughable and silly in a bad way. So I know that there were other ways to do this. At the same time, I get it. Low budget. This is for kids. You know, over the top dramatic elements are a part of what they're going for. It's not necessarily a lack of talent. They're intentionally going in this direction. It was more popular at the time, et cetera, et cetera. But I also think the review scores and the low ticket sales reflect that I'm not invalid in my critique either. You know what I mean? Like, I can forgive a lot of things with the low budget and stuff, but they kind of take the piss in these films a lot. Anyway, and then I want you to keep in mind that shipping container got knocked over a mountain, lands on the other side, rolls over. Hiroshi gets out of the truck, and Megalon. It cuts to Megalon destroying the dam, and then it cuts back to Hiroshi, and he's right at the shipping container, like checking on the brothers, and like they're like, "Oh, I'm okay, I'm fine," and then they're immediately fine. They're in the next cut, they are unaffected and completely fine. But also in that previous cut before that, Hiroshi was on one side of the mountain, and now he's on the other side of the mountain, or a big hill, or whatever you want to call it. There's no way, and it's just like, again, like, okay, I get it. You know, these little details, maybe they're only important to me, but I would look again at the ticket sales. I would look again at, like, you know, audience attendance, audience ratings, critic ratings. Like, I think that I think with things like this, it really is like death by a thousand cuts, or like the straw that broke the camel's back. You know what I mean? I can forgive a couple of these things, but there's so many in this movie. There's so many scenes that are ridiculous or just bad. And it's like rough. It's rough to try to maintain that connection with the movie and maintain your immersion in the film. It's hard to maintain your immersion in the film. And I haven't even gotten to the monster stuff. So let me go ahead and get to that, because I know that's what you guys probably want to know, hear about the most. So here's what I will say. Megalon is summoned at 33 minutes into the film. At this point, I am praising the fast pace of the movie. I will say that. Megalon's on land at 33 minutes in. 33 minutes in, okay? But here's where you lose me, and here's where I think you lost most people. Like, you can forget all of my asshole nitpicking. This is where I think you really lost the audience and critics. Megalon is summoned at 33 minutes into the film. That's when he appears. He has his first battle encounter with the army at 43 minutes. So an entire 10 minutes goes by before he has an encounter with the army. And the military kind of repels him. He doesn't seem to really want to fuck with him. He does have some moments where he's like, they repel him at first, and then it's like he gets mad and his horn up here. He's like this, he's kind of like a beetle. I haven't really talked about what I think about Megalon. So he's like this beetle monster. I actually think Megalon is a cool monster. Not like my favorite. I'd probably rank him middle of the pack. But he's cool, I thought he was a roach at first, but he's a beetle. He's able to, like, from that beetle horn, he's able to, like, shoot, like a lightning ray or a lightning bolt, very similar to King Ghidorah's, mouth rays or lightning rays. And I think that's intentional, because I'm pretty sure they used some stock footage here of Ghidorah's rays destroying a bunch of buildings and destroying the army and stuff, but they want you to think that it's not stock footage, that it's Megalon, so his beam is very similar to Ghidorah's. I wonder how much of that stock footage situation influenced Megalon having that beam attack that looks very similar to Ghidorah's. But he's also able to shoot. He, like, opens his mouth and he's able to shoot these, I don't know, these weird grenade rocks, I guess. he shoots out these rocks. They look like coal, and they can explode, but they have different behaviors. Sometimes they land, like there's a scene where he shoots it at Godzilla, and it lands next to Godzilla's head, and then like Jet Jaguar dives on it and grabs it and throws it back at Megalon. I thought like Jet Jaguar was going to do this like self-sacrifice thing where he's like diving on the grenade. I was kind of chuckling in my head thinking he was going to do that, but he just tosses it back at Megalon like here, and it explodes at Megalon, and Megalon's like, what the fuck? So I was just like, oh, okay, well, fine, But then other times he shoots out these, lumps of coal or whatever the fuck it is, and it explodes immediately. You know what I mean? And then at the end of the film, he's on his back and he shoots it up at Godzilla, who's standing over him, and Godzilla just like, Godzilla just does the old Samoa Joe, like, just walk away, just that's a wrestling reference, but it goes straight up in the air and then it comes down and lands in his mouth, and I'm like, oh my god, his head's gonna explode, because they always explode, but it just like burns and smoke starts coming out of his mouth, and that's it. I was like, oh, okay, well, all right, sure, I guess. But I think I kind of find myself feeling similar with Megalon to Hedorah, but not as strongly. But similar, like, I feel like he could have been more interesting. I would have liked to have seen him have the opportunity to fight Godzilla on his own, have his own movie fighting just Godzilla. I do think he's a little bit limited by the drill hands. Like you saw his design here again. He's got like these drill hands. So obviously, similar situation to Gigan. He can't grab anything, and that kind of limits some of the things that he can do in battle, but he can pierce with them, and he can drill with them. He has these attacks where he drills into the ground and he'll just like pop up out of the ground and like attack you randomly. I think that's pretty cool. And so I think Megalon is actually like a pretty cool monster, to be honest with you. I don't really see a problem with him. I think he's pretty cool, for a bug, right? But I feel like he was given a bad movie. It's kind of funny he's teaming up with Gigan, because they just did this to Gigan in the last fucking movie, Gigan is making his debut, an awesome monster, in my opinion. I think Gigan is one of the best monsters. And, his introduction is weak, and then he's tagged up with Ghidorah, and he just ends up looking weak. And I think Megalon ends up looking even weaker. I don't know if Megalon ever gets brought back. I don't know if he's brought back in Final Wars or if he appears in, one of the other eras. I don't think he does. I can't remember. Final Wars is just fucking like an acid trip, so I can't even remember what monsters appear in that. Yeah, it's just, again, I don't think he was given enough. I would have liked to have seen more out of him. He does look like, for instance, Jet Jaguar, when Seatopia finally gets control of Jet Jaguar, they order him to lead Megalon to Tokyo, and then this is right after the scene where the shipping container busts open. Goro sees Jet Jaguar, realizes that Seatopia is taking control of him, and he pulls out this necklace with like a speaker on it, a little necklace, and he's like, I have a supersonic necklace that can take back control, it can override the computer, and he stops to explain this to his buddy that's the racer, and he's like, yeah, but it only works while I have a direct line of sight to Jet Jaguar. So of course, as he goes to use it, Jet Jaguar flies behind some mountains. It's like, bro, like, oh my god, okay. Anyway, but when he does eventually get line of sight with Jet Jaguar, gets control of him, and says, hey, go get Godzilla, we need Godzilla. Again, like, in a lot of, and again, in some of the other movies where it's like Godzilla versus, alien monster from outer space or whatever, the aliens pick a fight with Godzilla. They bring Godzilla into it, or they're threatening the whole planet, and Godzilla happens to, like, they do a better job of like pulling Godzilla into the action. Here it's just like they just tell Jet Jaguar, like, go get Godzilla, he'll save us, he'll fight Megalon, and it's like how do you know that, man? Like why do you, like, I guess, like, I don't even know. I don't even know what's canon in these films. You know, I don't know if in this movie all the previous movies are also canon, and so like that's why they just like, oh, Godzilla's our protector now. He'll definitely save us. I don't know, maybe, but they send Jet Jaguar to go get Godzilla. And, you know, again talking about the humanization of the monsters. Jet Jaguar flies to Monster Island, lands in front of Godzilla, and starts like gesturing and like making these robot sounds. And they show Godzilla. I don't like Godzilla should not understand the robot, but Godzilla's like nodding, like, yeah, okay, I got you. Go on ahead. I'll follow you. Like they're just talking, you know, and gesturing like a person. And I was just like, I'm not really a fan of that. But okay, you know. And so Godzilla's on the way. Jet Jaguar's flying, so he gets back first. Grows, you know, to the size of Megalon and starts fighting Megalon. Gigan being in this film again, I feel like he's just there for stock footage, and the way they bring Gigan in is when Seatopia finds out Godzilla's coming to fight Megalon, you know, their leader just like casually looks over to somebody and says, hey, contact, you know, M Space Hunter Nebula. Was it M Space Hunter? M Hunter Space Nebula? Whatever. Contact them and tell them to send Gigan. Tell them we need Gigan's assistance. How the fuck does Seatopia have like a working relationship with like Gigan's homeworld way out in outer space on the other side of so that was, again, it's just like they just needed a reason. And that's a lot of the writing in these movies is like, well, you know, we want this to happen, so we just got to write an excuse for it to happen. So we want Gigan in the movie, just have him say, call Gigan. And that's literally what they do. So that's how Gigan gets there. And again, like, you know, they think they're slick with the stock footage, but one of the benefits of watching all these Godzilla movies, when Megalon is having his fight with the military, planes are flying at when Megalon's fighting the military, planes are flying at Megalon, and Megalon swipes at them, and they cut to Gigan's hand hitting the planes from Godzilla versus Gigan. So they're using a lot of stock footage from the last movie too. But anyway, all this is happening. I know I'm all over the place. But let me get back to something I was saying probably 15 minutes ago. Megalon appears at 33 minutes. He has his first encounter with the army 10 minutes later at 43 minutes. Jet Jaguar returns and has a fight with Megalon like around like the 50-minute mark or something like that, I guess. I don't have that written down. Like between when Megalon lands and Jet Jaguar returns and starts fighting Megalon, like 20 minutes goes by, 15 to 20 minutes of Megalon having his first encounter with the army, the bullshit with the shipping container, stock footage of Gigan fighting the army, M Space Hunter Nebula, that's how it's said, by the way. And then like also when Jet Jaguar is taken control of by the humans again and goes to get Godzilla, for some reason, I don't know why they wrote Megalon to be like an idiot or just why they wrote him this way. When he loses his guide, he just starts flipping out. He starts like dancing all over the place and like jumping and skipping and gliding and like he's like freaking out, like he's having seizures. I don't know why they wrote him that way. Like just because Jet Jaguar left without leading Megalon. First of all, why didn't Megalon just follow him if that was his guide anyway? Second of all, like I'm sure Megalon existed before Jet Jaguar. What happened before? Like for whatever reason, when Jet Jaguar leaves Megalon starts freaking out, spazzing out, and just dancing and skipping all throughout all these scenes until the army starts attacking him, and then he fights the army, right? And then, you know, Jet Jaguar comes back, grows tall, and starts fighting Megalon and kind of beating Megalon's ass until Gigan shows up. But Godzilla does not show up until, and Gigan showed, like, Jet Jaguar versus Megalon is probably at like the 50-minute mark. Gigan probably shows up at like close to the 1 hour mark. Godzilla doesn't show up in the film to fight until 1 hour and 5 minutes into the film, and there's only 16 minutes left, and then you still get a bunch of stock footage in that tiny ass, baby ass final fight that you get. Again, I just want to say, I believe, I haven't researched it a lot, but I did read that this movie had a really short shoot for like production time. Like basically they didn't have a lot of time to shoot for this film. Maybe just a couple of weeks to shoot this movie. Less than others, I'll just say that. We already know the budget is tiny, so I'm willing to forgive the stock footage. I'm willing to be understanding of a lot of things, but I think this movie is worse than Godzilla vs. Gigan. And yeah, I think significantly worse. Like, I think I like the actors that play the human characters here, but they're not memorable in any way. They're not. Like, the only thing that's memorable really is the race car driver whose name I can't even remember his name, but his race car sequences are really good. Their fight scenes are terrible. Outside of that, they're just there for exposition and lore dumping and like whatever. The monster fights are, you get like a lot of like pro wrestling stuff in this, like a lot of tag team moves. Godzilla and Jet Jaguar, when they're beating up Megalon and Gigan, you know, he has Jet Jaguar, like, again, like, you know, they're talking back and forth and gesturing. Godzilla's like, lift him up, and Jet Jaguar picks up Gigan, and Godzilla's like, throw him up in the air, and Jet Jaguar throws him up in the air, and then Godzilla shoots him with his breath while he's in the air. It's kind of fucked up. Again, like, my boy Gigan is really not getting his due. They do have the scene where Gigan threatens to behead Jet Jaguar, and Godzilla stops and then shoots him with his breath. Godzilla doesn't use his breath until 1 hour and 11 minutes. 1 hour and 11 minutes is the first time I see Godzilla use his breath. Crazy, bro. Like, even if you're going to use stock footage, even if you're going to have short fights, like, you can't wait. You can't make me sit through an hour and 5 minutes, 65 minutes of mediocrity just to see a final fight that's also mid. You know, it has some fun stuff in it. But, and I do think, to be fair, considering this final fight is only, you know, what, 15 minutes long? Yeah, 15 minutes long, about. They squeeze in as much as they can in that 15 minutes, but again, using stock footage. And you know, this is a new Godzilla suit. This is the suit that I don't know the name of this suit. Let me see if I can find out the name of this suit. But I associate it with Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla, but it appears here, so I don't know what name that it might have. But you know, it's a new suit, so every time they switch to stock footage, that has Godzilla in it, he's wearing it's a different suit, a way different suit, by the way, and it's just, again, it breaks the immersion so bad. Megaro Goji, official nickname for the suit introduced in Godzilla vs. Megalon. It's a combination of Megaro, which is Megalon, and Goji from Gojira. So, Megaro Goji. Okay. It was famously built in only about a week and has a more friendly, rounded face with big eyes and a relatively upright stance compared to earlier Showa suits. Yeah, it does. It does have like almost like puppy dog eyes. But I like it. You know, it does have a more friendly looking face, you know, nostrils and like almost like a dog snout almost. But I like this suit, you know. Like I said, I associate it with some of the stuff I saw in Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla. I think this was used in Terror of Mechagodzilla as well, which is, from what I remember, more serious. But anyway, Yeah, it's just not good, you know? It's just not a great movie, honestly. Um, you know, they they switch over in the middle of the final fight or near the beginning of the final fight after Gigan gets there. They have the Air Force attack Gigan randomly out of nowhere. I think it's in the middle of the final fight. They have the Air Force attack Gigan, and they just start using stock footage from Godzilla versus Gigan, which was really frustrating. Let's see if there's anything else I missed. Godzilla beat the fuck out of Gigan in this movie again. I just really hate how Gigan keeps getting the short end of the stick. Godzilla's using a lot of like human movement, and he's throwing a lot of punches, like uppercuts, hooks to the body, hooks to the face. He ends up mounting Gigan again while like Jet Jaguar's fighting over here with Megalon, and he's like punching, like ground and pound punching Gigan in the face. Again, he's sitting right on the saw blade. I kept thinking to myself, like, why don't you just turn that saw blade on while he's sitting on top of you? It would be wild. You know, it's funny, in Godzilla vs. Gigan, they were in the same situation, and I was like, man, if Gigan activated that saw, and they didn't, and I was like, okay, like, I get it. But here, doing it 2 movies in a row, and this isn't stock footage, they did it again. I'm like, bro, like, how many times are you going to put Gigan in a situation where if he turned that saw on, it would save him, and he doesn't? Like, come on, man. You know, you're asking for, you know, a lot. There was, I think, a possible nod to King Kong versus Godzilla, where Godzilla pulls a tree out of the ground and starts using it as a weapon against Megalon and Gigan. I thought that was cool. He ends up like beating the fuck out of them. Like, they have Jet Jaguar down, and he shows up and beats the fuck out of them. And there's a scene where the camera cuts and it shows Godzilla, and he's standing in the middle just like a badass, and he like throws down the tree that he was using as a weapon, and you see Gigan just laid out on his left and Megalon laid out on his right. That's a badass scene for Godzilla, but that really shits on Gigan and Megalon, you know? And I just, I'm taking it too seriously, but I just, you know, I thought it was cool. I thought it was a badass scene, but again, you know, Gigan just got introduced to the franchise. You're already bringing him back. I'm sure you're going to want to keep bringing him back because his design is dope. And you just, you know, he keeps looking weak. This is Megalon's first movie. He's stuck in a tag team match instead of having to fight Godzilla by himself or getting to fight Godzilla by himself. He's like, I think that, you know, I think Gigan's design is better than a bug, right? I like Gigan's design better than Megalon's, but I think that the reason why you don't see Megalon again is, one, that association with Seatopia, which is super cringe, and 2, he's just written poorly. Like, again, like, you know, without Jet Jaguar leading him around, he just starts freaking out and dancing around, and like, I don't know, like, it's just so, they just wrote him so weird. His behavior is so weird, you know. Jet Jaguar also, you know, there's a scene, like I told you, that scene where Jet Jaguar picks up Gigan and throws him up in the air and Godzilla shoots him. Bro, right before he does that, he's holding Gigan's arms behind his back, and he breaks one of Gigan's arms, bro. How you gonna break my boy's arm like that? Like, Gigan didn't even get to draw blood in this film. He did, but it's stock footage from the previous movie. So they reused that shot of Gigan flying over Godzilla and like cutting his shoulder open and blood shooting everywhere. They reused that from the previous film, and that's the only blood that Gigan gets to draw. They beat up Jet Jaguar. Jet Jaguar's fight scenes are okay. He uses like he gets into like some kung fu stances and throws like some punches and does a lot of like little throws on Megalon and stuff. I really didn't like the fight scenes overall, though, because of all of the humanization of all of the characters involved. You know, Jet Jaguar is basically like, that's already like, it's a robot, but it's clearly a dude in like a rubberish suit. So it's, you know, he's using all these human moves, human throws, chops and punches and human karate and stuff. So I think he does try to move like a robot somewhat, but I mean, it already looks very much like a dude in a suit, like just straight up, right? Then with the three monsters, you have them all like, gesturing like humans as well. And then you have Godzilla like nodding, and then like when he first gets there and saves, like when Godzilla first arrives, Megalon and Gigan are beating up on Jet Jaguar, right? Jet Jaguar beat up Megalon, Gigan showed up, started beating up Jet Jaguar. They start tag teaming Jet Jaguar. Godzilla shows up to save Jet Jaguar, save the day. He pulls Jet Jaguar up, and Jet Jaguar's like, oh, thank you, bro, and like grabs Godzilla's hand and just starts shaking his hand like, thank you so much. And Godzilla's like, I got you, bro. And I'm just like, wow, I don't want to watch this anymore. Like, stop. Like, please. Like, I know that it's men in suits. Like, I know that. Like, I know, the technology they were working with. And I know what it is. It's dudes in suits, pretending. Can we pretend? Because that's what I signed up for. I signed up for dudes in monster suits acting like monsters. Not dudes in monster suits that are acting like dudes, and it's like, it just, with, and then at the end of the movie, when Megalon and Gigan end up fleeing, they shake hands again and have like another moment. Godzilla's like got his hand on his shoulder. I think they're shaking hands, and they're clearly like talking back and forth. Like they just won a pro wrestling match and they're in the ring. Like, what the fuck are you doing, man? Like, I'm sure there's some people that like it, and that's fine. Like, I get that, and I understand. Again, like, I'm probably being a crybaby, and I'm not the target audience. I get it, but it's just like, my enjoyment of these films, a lot of it really hinges on how easy you make it for me to forget that this is dudes in suits. Like, can you make me believe that's Godzilla? Can you make me feel like that's Gigan, like that's a giant monster? If the way that you shoot the movie, if the cinematography, and then the way that the suit actor moves, if all of it comes together right, you can act. Yes, I will believe. I can definitely do it. I've done it like a decade earlier before this, so I know that you can get me there. But it just feels like you're not even trying to do that anymore. Now it's like you're embracing, it's dudes in monster suits wrestling. And, I've said this before, like, I'm glad it exists. I'm glad that it exists. And I think that the concept and the ideas around this film are interesting and could have been a lot better. Could have been a lot more interesting. It's the execution that I think is so poor that when I look at like the review scores and the critic scores and the audience scores for this film and the ticket sales, everything just being so low, like 3 and 4 out of 10 and shit. I really think that's why. I think one is you made the audience sit through 60 minutes of like kind of a cheesy, campy movie. I'm not going to say bad, like terrible, but it definitely wasn't good. You make him sit through 60 minutes of meh to get Godzilla finally like on the screen, like ready to fight. And you don't get him using his first breath attack till an hour and 11 minutes into an hour and 16 minute film. I think at the very least, if you want to be lazy and if you want to have all of these cringe and campy human characters, you have to give the audience, I think, more monsters, more monster action in there. It felt like in this film they saved it all up for the end. They sent Megalon out there early, but like the first like 15 minutes that Megalon is on land is just, whatever. Like, the biggest thing that happens is the army shows up and starts like shooting him with cannons and stuff, and it's okay, but and then the Jet Jaguar fight happens, but it's like, bro, I don't even really care about Jet Jaguar. Like, that's really a dude in a suit. He looks like a pro wrestler with a bad mask, so anyway, I know I'm just bitching. I think that's it. I think that's the movie, man. And you know, it's fun, it's fast, it's silly. There's very much a Saturday morning cartoon vibe to it. There's very much a, Saturday morning pro wrestling show, like not a very serious pro wrestling show kind of vibe to it, like pro wrestling, superhero, buddy comedy. There's elements of all that in here. I just don't really feel like any of it is done very, very well. Like the fight scenes again, like they're very pro wrestling fight scenes, very, like, you can tell it's choreographed. It's very low impact. You can tell they're not trying to hurt each other, but like it's just pathetic at times. It's just bad. It's just straight up really bad at times. I mean, like when they come back, I didn't even talk about this because it doesn't matter. But towards the end of the film, our main characters, it's the racer and the little boy, go back to the robotics lab to take it back, right? And they go in there and they break in on like the guy from the agent from Seatopia that was there earlier that had the racer tied up to the chair, right? The way they get in is so stupid. They just like throw a rock at the camera and the guy walks out, and then the little kid like use a remote control airplane and like flies it into the dude's face. But the important part is they start fighting. Like the little kid and the racer are fighting with the Seatopia guy. And the way the fight ends is the racer has him pressed up against the wall and looks back at the little kid, and the little kid is like, I don't know, there's this cube, like it's this stylish futuristic lab, right? There's like a metallic looking cube that's hanging from the ceiling, and the kid like swings on it, and then the racer throws the guy into the cube and the kid hits him. It is so clear, even with their editing and like switching like shots and cutting mid impact, it is completely obvious that there's no impact, and the guy just kind of like lays on the cube and then goes and then falls back. Like it's so bad, bro. Like you could do all of these things and do them in fun ways. You could do them better than this. But I get it, with their budget, they're probably using like, no-name actors. No offense to them. I can't even critique their acting because I don't speak Japanese. But like, they're probably not able to acquire the best talent. So I can overlook a lot of it. But I think I said Godzilla vs. Gigan was like a 5 or a 6 out of 10. Probably like a 6 out of 10. But with the taking the budget into consideration, I think it was probably like an 8 or a 9, considering like what they were able to accomplish on that tiny budget. Here, I think this is like a 4 out of 10, 3 or 4. This is like a 3 or a 4. And with the budget, it's a 5, maybe a 5. And it's primarily because you make us wait all the way to the last 15 minutes of the movie to give us like some monster action that's worth talking about and digging into. And it doesn't feel like, especially with the stock footage that they throw in every couple of minutes into that fight, it's a short fight already, and then you're using stock and filler footage. It's not even a great fight to talk about, So, anyway, that was Godzilla vs. Megalon. Yeah, I can understand why as a kid I kind of felt meh about it, Like, would I ever watch it again? Probably, yeah. I'd probably still check it out again, It does have some fun elements. The fight scenes are fun but bad. The chase sequences are really fun and really good. It's got some campy, awful, laughable stuff in it that maybe you could enjoy if that's what you're signing up for. But I think for me, like, where my negativity mostly comes from is like, I just wish these movies were better, and I'm just approaching it from the position, like from the mentality of like, I'm in critic mode. I'm here to criticize and praise the things that I think are genuinely good, objectively good, and criticize things that I think are objectively bad. There's been a lot of bad lately. So anyway, what is our next Godzilla movie? So the next Godzilla is Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla from 1974. I think I liked this one. I think I really liked this movie. I remember watching it a lot. I think we get another King Caesar is in this, the dog-looking monster. I'm not really sure. But I think this one, Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla, was more serious, and I think I liked it more. So we'll see. But I'll be back to give you my thoughts on that one next time. And I apologize if these reviews seem overly negative. Like, I don't know how to explain it. I like these movies, but I also think they're pretty bad. But I like them, but they're pretty bad. Anyway, see you next time.